Testing.
Oh,
testing. Smooth
my
like butter.
God,
Smooth like butter.
So smooth. Welcome to the watering hole.
Yes, I am Freddie Walton.
As you know, probably not. This first time tuning in. I'm Tyler Gaylord.
Let's do that again.
Let's
do that again.
Take it again.
Let's take
you
it again.
want to take it again?
Yeah, let's take it
again.
Why? We could do that better.
Welcome to the watering hole.
I am Freddie Walton.
And I'm Tyler Gaylord. Do you know that?
Probably don't.
Do you think they know that?
Probably don't. Actually, the only people clicking on this probably do know us.
Right. So if this is your first time tuning in,
good to see you.
Hello. We are single-handedly solving race relations, one podcast table at a time.
100%. I'm pretty sure we've made the world a better place, uncontrollably.
Dude,
with our small, 10 people who watch, boom, we're changing the world.
Dare anybody to dispute that fact.
It's a given.
It is a given.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, step outside, breathe in your air, and if you live in smoggy conditions, stay inside and breathe in your air and go, that's because of Freddie and Tyler.
It must be. Because of the podcast they have and the 8 to 10 that it affects. No, it's good. It's good to be doing it, man. It's been a good day, and we've got some stuff done, and the podcast is something we look forward to getting done.
Yeah.
And this is a good... It feels good. It feels like we're kicking back now. You know, we get to reflect on the day and talk about some stuff. And this is the kickback at the end of the day. So it feels
good. Time
good.
where we get to just kind of talk and shoot the shit. Have our tea apparently this time. That's what we're
tea. Normally it's something a little more spicy, but today it's tea.
Oh,
fancy
tea time. Tea time with Freddie and Tyler.
Tea time with Freddie and Tyler.
This is where we talk about the socioeconomics of Britain.
Let's talk about the downfall of America.
Oh, disastrous.
Let's talk about the downfall of Johnny Depp.
Fuck, bro. No, dude.
I want to dive right in. I know this hit you.
Peeking it to, Britain, J.K. Rowling, all that shit. It's a British, I was going to say IP, like it's some Marvel thing. Anyway, yes. The downfall of Johnny Depp. Not downfall.
Let's not call it downfall.
That's a terrible way to phrase it.
That's
a terrible way to phrase it. The stepping down, forceful stepping down from Warner Brothers to make Johnny Depp walk away from both Pirates of the Caribbean and the Fantastic Beasts series.
Well, okay, so you know more about the situation than I do.
A little bit.
So just walk me through what's happened. As I understand it, Amber Heard and him have an abusive relationship. She's claiming that he is physical with her. Yep. He's claiming that she's physical with him. It seems to be somewhat not even. I don't know if we can say that, but it seems to be reciprocal.
I will say that from what I know, and I'm not an expert in this by any means.
You're not a Depp expert?
No. In fact, I wasn't even a huge fan of his work in the past 10 years. But now that he's kind of had this underdog moment for him, I'm like, I hope he succeeds. I'm a big fan. Now I'm a big fan because I want to see him come back.
The guy who gets paid so much money and is one of the top actors, he's now an underdog. And now we get to fight for him.
I was like, I don't know, this shit's just gotten a little old. His shtick's kind of like, these wonky characters. I don't know, the past 10 years, I haven't really been a huge Depp fan, but now I'm on his side. So as far as I understand it, my years are going to be all messed up, so I'm not going to use exact years, but a few years ago, Amber Heard filed basically a lawsuit against him saying that he was abusive. It was like a libel lawsuit, and it was posted, if I remember correctly, on like a British tabloid. I think it was The Sun, I want to say.
Amber Heard is she British or is she Australian?
I honestly have no idea.
I feel like she has an accent. What if I'm so wrong?
She has an accent. I think she's American, but I could be entirely wrong.
Why am I thinking that she's one of those?
Let's see. American.
She's American?
She's American.
God, I look stupid now.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time. It won't be the last. So what we're looking at with her is she took out this thing, and then Depp kind of didn't fight back for like a year or so. As far as I understand, it took a while. Like, I remember hearing all the allegations and being like, all right, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I remember that part.
And then he took out a $50 million lawsuit, defamation lawsuit against her. And as far as we can understand, it was that he had spent that past year not saying anything, playing it close to the chest, and gathering evidence against her, right? Which was pretty smart.
Yeah.
Long story short, 2 years or so of legal shit's gone on. They've been accusing things, challenging stuff. I mean, the evidence that Depp had was pretty rough looking. Like, Amber Heard brought evidence forward of a bruised face, stuff like that, absolutely. Some stuff that people question, was it doctored at the time to make her case look better? Maybe, maybe not. No one really knows. But Depp definitely had people to corroborate his story about like a sliced finger from a bottle that was thrown at him, if I remember correctly, and people being like, yeah, he had bandages on his hand for weeks around that time. They didn't know why. He didn't say why. He kept all that stuff pretty close to the chest. He didn't want to, shit talk her or say, hey, this is what's going on. But people did report, like, yeah, I remember seeing that bandage around that time around his finger. So he had a sliced finger. He had pictures of his bruised face. He said that she took a shit on his bed and like all this stuff, like in one of her like big tirades, or she was just like, was like out of control. And so she went up and just took a shit right on the bed, and like all these things that, again, could be he said, she said, could be true, could be false.
That's crazy.
That's a wild one. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right.
You shat on someone's bed.
Could you imagine being that pissed off?
No, I can't. I don't even know that I have that much control to where I can just be like, I'm pissed. It's coming.
I don't know. I feel like I'd have people get like shy bladders. I feel like I'd have like a performance issue with my intestines.
You're just sitting there, and that's a talent.
I'd be like, hold it. Just hold up. It's coming. Just
you stay right there. I'm going to show you how angry I am.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
I'm steaming right now.
And something else is about to be steaming too.
Okay, so she's got shit under control.
So that's kind of what we're looking at with that. And now the reason why this is in the news is because Warner Brothers has had him step down from the Fantastic Beasts series, and he already had to step down from the Pirates series about a year ago, I think it was, maybe 6 months ago, because of this case.
Was not true.
Yeah. So what happened is, because when I posted this to my Facebook, a lot of my friends commented on it, as you'd seen, and one of my good friends actually posted that they kind of were both responsible at best. And I was like,
I saw that post.
Yeah, and I was like, I could probably agree with that, so I looked into it a little bit more. Turns out that in the court of law, where they brought the case to, there were 14 accounts of domestic violence that Amber Heard had brought about what happened with Johnny.
Yeah.
And in that case, 12 out of the 14 went in Amber Heard's favor. Now, the judge, the reasoning that I could find in some of the limited research I had done, is the judge kind of made a testament of like, is it believable? Is it believable that Johnny Depp did this, did that, what have you? And a lot of it was like a text message that could be taken out of context. And really, that's all you can do in these cases. All you can do in these cases is, because there's not a lot of evidence. Some of the stuff you can back up, some of it's he said, she said. So a lot of this is just like the judge would have to look at it and be like, that seems believable. That seems better than not. Yeah, you want to go shut that off real quick? We're just going to take a quick second right here. What we're looking at here really is more likely, even the way the judge ruled in the favor of Amber Heard, it was most likely it could have happened thing. He threw out two of them because they didn't seem realistic, right? So at best, we still don't know who abused who did what. But yet Johnny had to be the one to step down from an IP because he's now able to be labeled wife beater, when it's most likely both of them had contributed. It was probably a
toxic relationship.
It was a toxic relationship. And as it goes, very well, Amber Heard could have slapped him first, and then he maybe hit back, maybe didn't, but let's just say that he did. Because he's a dude, obviously it's going to not look great. And should you do that? Absolutely not. Do I fault him for doing that? I also don't fault him either if he's feeling like he's defending himself.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to do here is not say who was right or wrong in the scenario. My issue with the case is how it was handled after by the powers that be, being Warner Brothers. My issue is the fact that, and I am adamant about this, even in my Facebook thing, because of what we don't know and what we do know of the case, if you're going to make one step down, you should probably make the other step down too. Because she could step down from Aquaman, which is arguably, yes, the bigger franchise. But
is Aquaman bigger than Pirates?
I would say currently it is.
Really?
Because if you were to tell me about the Pirates series in the second or third, I would say no.
I think it still might be one of the biggest franchises. It makes
it's one of the big
amounts of money.
But the last ones haven't made nearly as much as the earlier ones. You could say that has diminishing results. So if you're following that graph, whereas Aquaman starts at $1 billion whatever it was, 1.2 billion, whatever it did, and you don't have a second one now to see like maybe it did more. You know what I mean? So if you're looking at two franchises, one that's going down in returns and one that's going up, you could argue that that's the more successful franchise. You could argue it.
I suppose.
And so regardless, though, they are two big franchises. And the Fantastic Beasts series also has been going down as well with its returns, as the quality of the films have too. But to have him step down from those, but not have Amber Heard do it, just seems wrong to me.
It's certainly unfair, especially if you're not going to have solid proof on either side. And it sucks just on a one. Okay, so this isn't the thing you should be thinking about, right? With domestic violence, obviously, we understand to some extent that what you want to do is figure out the most of the truth that you can figure out, and that's the most important thing. So regardless of how successful you are, regardless of how awesome of an actor you are, what you bring to the table as far as your acting abilities, if you are someone who is involved in domestic violence, that should come first. I do understand that.
Yeah.
However, assuming that we don't know the truth here, so we don't know for sure that Johnny Depp is a wife beater, how you gonna do Pirates without Johnny Depp? What you gonna do?
You could probably easily do It's a harder time doing Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp than it is a harder time doing Aquaman without Amber Heard. That's just what it is.
Yeah,
it's a harder because Johnny Depp. I mean,
he is that franchise.
He's the consistent thing because
he's
now
the
they've moved
you go
on.
See it. You don't go see it from like there's some other decent characters.
The thing is, they moved on from Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley's characters for a couple
of them. The only other good one was,
and then
what's the dude?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. The other captain dude. They moved away from those characters, and then they brought him back. I think in this last one, something like that. Did they?
Spoiler alert!
I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him since
he
the second
died in the
or
most recent one where they're fighting the trident of Poseidon.
Okay.
I think that's the
ironically
the
also what Trident like Aquaman.
Yeah.
Why don't they just merge? Why don't they just merge?
Have Amber Heard and Jack Sparrow meet,
duke it out.
Oh, but then she just wins. She just whoops his ass.
Hey, Johnny Depp went up against David Jones. Yeah, he went up against some motherfuckers.
He did.
Don't count my boy Jack Sparrow out.
Yeah, you're right.
He's an underdog, just like Johnny.
He's had some talent. He has some talent.
But I will say that, like, I also want to make the clarification here. I am not a huge fan of how quick we are to react to certain aspects of cancel culture. I believe if it's justified and right, absolutely people should lose the franchises that might have made them millions, all that stuff like that. But we're looking at a lot of cases that's just overstepping. Look at the James Gunn case about tweets from 10 years ago, and then he had to go leave Guardians, and they had to rally to get him back on. And
Which they did, right?
They did, but it almost never happened, right? There's a lot of cases recently where it feels like a little bit of overstepping of cancel culture. We're really quick to cancel somebody, and I would much rather that we just don't cancel anyone in this case. I don't want Amber Heard to have to step down from Aquaman. I don't think that she should. I also don't think that Johnny Depp should step down from his franchises.
Yeah, and so I'm going to compare it to something, and again, I want to make very clear that I'm not saying the two are the same severity. But in back in the school days, if two kids fight, regardless of who started it, they both get detention. And
right,
and it would be a little different if it were more of a bullying situation, right? If there's one kid who's just bullying someone and he's clearly the aggressor, and the other kid is undeniably just protecting himself. Well, in that case, we have an idea of who's the culprit, and so we have a very clear decision. But in cases where it's two kids fighting, they were both arguing, they were both hot and heavy and heated and.
Are you talking about fighting or porn?
I made that sound real sexual. I made that sound, and we're talking
Freddie,
about
for those who aren't aware, Freddie also was singing R. Kelly before we started.
You gonna do that? You gonna tell the world? Okay.
You gonna cancel me over?
So here's the problem.
You gonna cancel me over?
Here's the problem, because now we got to talk about it, because you can't just throw it out there like I was just listening, because I was, but you can't. Okay, you gonna do that to me? Let's talk about it.
Oh, no.
Okay, here's the deal.
All right.
Here's the deal. R. Kelly is a bad man. You gonna do that to me? R. Kelly is a bad man. Okay.
I can visualize. There's an open room behind you, but I see you in a corner now.
I'm in a corner. Okay.
Hopefully it's not a closet.
I haven't removed his. I don't even know. I haven't removed his music from my playlist. My playlist is like 3,500 songs. You're crying because you done did wrong. You done did wrong. And I don't know. Wait a minute. I don't know what my moral obligation is. Is it supporting? What is it supporting him by? It's a great song. So what do I do? And so
we had this conversation on a podcast that did not get released before, so we can kind of have it a little bit before again. I think we agreed that if R. Kelly went and released something right now, and then you actively supported that would be an issue, because then you're supporting someone possibly while still in the legal shit, while still in the shit he's in, the sex cults and stuff. You're supporting that. But to have been a fan of it before any of that, then you can't just rob yourself of the good vibes or the good times that it gave you before.
Yeah, and there is an argument here, and we did talk about this a long time ago. There's an argument that as soon as someone creates art, it is no longer fully theirs. And the way that what you do with it, how you experience it, what you feel from it, it becomes something different. And you allow it to become this thing that is yours. And so I understand not buying stuff from R. Kelly and supporting him financially. I get that premise. But there is kind of a certain thing of like this song has this feeling and it takes me back to these memories. And as long as it's not actively supporting him in any, continuous way, I feel like I get to say kind of like, fuck you, R. Kelly, this one's mine,
Yeah, I think it definitely becomes ownership of the person who was affected by it. It's the same reason I used at that conversation, for Kevin Spacey stuff. Like, American Beauty is still one of my favorite films of all time.
Pay It Forward, I like that one.
Oh.
Pay It Forward.
I haven't seen it.
I don't know if it's one of his best, but I watched it as a kid.
But I think like those things mean something to us, and they resonated with us. And I still think about American Beauty for a lot of the life lessons that film presents. Yeah. And so, if Kevin Spacey puts out a movie today and then I go and actively support that, that's a different thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's clear cut. I don't know exactly where the line is. I don't know what my obligation would be. And I don't mean it's not in a combative way. It's not even. I just don't know what the right answer is there.
Yeah.
Like if there was a movie where there's a bunch of other people and everyone else they're not. This person. This is an ensemble piece. Do I not support it because the one person? Do I not? I don't exactly know what it is. It feels like a gray area.
I also don't know, and this is a much broader conversation for some other time. But how long does someone serve a sentence for? When is an appropriate punishment for when we can, the prison system as it's supposed to work is supposed to be a rehabilitation. It's supposed to be that whatever crime you did.
Yeah, it's not permanent condemnation.
When you are out, you served your time. And that's an issue with the prison system in general. Now there's so much stigma that follows you. It's impossible to get a job half the time. You're always labeled as that's a whole nother conversation. So the system doesn't work out. But if it works as it should be a rehabilitation that someone has spent their time. They have done their, the justice has been served and they can move on now. And I think, do we have that for the court of public opinion? Do we have that for the biggest one right now for me is Mel Gibson, right? He hasn't had an outburst recently, but you're also looking at someone who maybe had views on certain groups of people.
Yeah.
Do those views ever change? Is that something that because he hasn't had an outburst, does that mean that he's a changed person? Or does that just mean that he's better at reining it in now? I know he was an alcoholic. I think he's sober. I could be wrong on that. What is the right course in public opinion of how much time someone has to serve before we can support them again? I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation.
It is. But most importantly, I'm upset at you for bringing up R. Kelly.
Well, you were talking about how hot kids were.
He had never heard.
It's hot and heavy.
I said they were hot and heavy. I walked myself
into that. You're talking about two kids
fighting. And I said hot and heavy. I have to take some responsibility for this. I cannot completely escape.
This is terrible.
It's terrible. Anyway, so there's these kids, and they're fighting. They're brutish Groots who are
in the most non-sexual way possible.
Engaging
they are fighting
combatively to the death. Where were we even going?
You were going with the idea that if two kids are fighting, that they both get detention.
They both get detention. And in this situation, if it's unclear, and again, I want to reiterate that we both agree that if it is decided that you are actively guilty and you were the one agitating the situation, primarily so, we do think that you deserve to be punished in whatever way we deem fit. But if it's uncertain, it seems pretty unfair to make such a
or if both
concrete
people
decision.
are responsible for the things that happened, then the punishment should be equal. And I don't want anyone canceled. So I would just rather Johnny didn't have to step down from his shit, Amber didn't have to step down from her shit. Let the public decide
who they want to support.
Yeah, if someone absolutely hates Amber Heard's guts because of this, don't go see Aquaman 2. If someone thinks that Johnny Depp's in the wrong for this, don't go see Fantastic Beast. Like, let the public decide then who they're going to cancel. Don't have the company come down for something that is such a we still don't know basically what really happened. Don't have the company then have to force someone out, because on top of it, it's not a great business decision. As a business, you are trying to decide what the public's going to like the best. What's going to be the best for our business. That's the only reason why any company makes any move. It feels like some
form of virtue signaling.
Exactly. And you have no idea if you just pissed off a whole bunch of people that love Johnny Depp to the point that you are now hurting Aquaman 2 because now they're going to go against Amber Heard. Like, you wanted to do the right business decision by watching, look, we are not going to support this, right? But you might have just fucked your own business over too.
Yeah, and personally, I really like. I'm going to be real careful here because people like to misconstrue stuff. I heard Whoopi Goldberg once talking about when a woman gets hit by a man, right? So I've lived my whole life where you don't hit a woman. Sure. That's the basic premise of it, right?
Especially you.
Yeah. I'm a big man. I'm a black man.
Especially you.
I kill her. One hit, you done. So I've lived my whole life with that premise. And if I see a man hit a woman, it does hit me in a wrong way. But I think that Whoopi Goldberg once was like, if you hit a man as a woman, and you're just operating, I'm paraphrasing here, but you're operating under like just they can't hit me back because I'm a woman.
I remember hearing this.
Don't be surprised when they hit you back, because ultimately, no one. I'm gonna say this all wrong. No one should be. You shouldn't be hitting anyone.
Right.
You should not be putting your hands on anyone. And if you decide to physically hurt someone, they should have the right to some degree to defend themselves. And that's why violence should only be something it should only be the decision you make when it's absolutely necessary. Now, obviously, you have to look at, like, if there's a big man and a woman were to slap him, I don't think he should just go gung-ho on her.
I think, like, here's the thing is, like, that's exactly the issue we have right now, is that what does defending yourself mean when you are a man who is physically stronger than the woman? Where does the line go to defend yourself? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if you avoid physical confrontation, and so you try to walk away from the scenario, but she follows you, and she keeps hitting you, and she keeps hitting you, and then you're like, I'm not going to do it, and you try to get in your car, and like she starts coming after your car. Like, where is the line to where you go, okay, I can try to at least defend myself, and it's
important,
some level.
It's important to say that we're talking about the removal of the idea that as the woman you can engage in physical punishment against a man, and with under the assumption that they just can't do anything to defend themselves. That's what we're talking about. We're not arguing for the men can hit women. No. We're arguing that people shouldn't be hitting people unless it's absolutely necessary to defend yourself or to defend someone else. There shouldn't be a physical altercation.
Right.
And it is unfair, because there's some men who just aren't, like, a woman is not a incapable creature. Mm-hmm. There are women who can hurt someone.
I mean, look at these UFC fighters.
Yeah, there's some dangerous women. And so if
I was dating like Nunes or someone, Amanda Nunes or whatever her name is, I'd be like, I'm just gonna.
And so it's
just gonna not get into the ring with this one. You got it, babe.
And so I imagine I have heard stories of, like, men who aren't, they're not big and they're not completely secure in their ability to defend someone. And so, like, this woman is beating their ass, and it's like, oh, I can't even defend just because I'm a man. And so you have to just break it down to violence is bad all around.
Oh yeah.
Like violence, if it's cruel if you operate under I can hit him and he can't hit me, so I'm going to use this to my advantage. That's a cruel mindset for anyone to be using. Yeah. And you just it's not good.
I mean, I think again, this is such a tough conversation because at the end of the day, we are two men talking about this.
We are. I'm trying to be careful because I don't want people to think that we're advocates for any woman being hit by a man.
And I don't want to act like another thing that my friend had pointed out. She made a great point. Obviously, about the history of women having come out of certain coming out about abuses or things that they've had to suffer. And in this industry, women have had to face so much horrible shit men stuff. Never have to worry about.
Men have been pigs.
Right. And so I think all that is 100% valid. But I just feel it's important that in this new age moving forward, we don't grant a new punishment because of past problems. We don't go, hey, we know women have been historically at a disadvantage in this industry. So in this case, Amber, you're gonna get off scot-free, and Johnny, you're the one who's gonna have to face a punishment. We can't just judge it based off of that. It's the same stuff with with slavery and things, where you just go like, we can't then. We're looking for equality for all, equality in judgment, equality for a lot of stuff. We can't just be like, well, I mean, Dave Chappelle kind of joked about it, right? About all the shit that happened. Just give someone give the crack dealer ice cream. He'll be weird about it.
Suspicious.
But he'll take it. But I do think that it's one of those things that even though what he's saying is a joke and makes an interesting point, at the end of the day, we can't be making judgments based off, well, how much shit has this side dealt with? We're just looking for equality for all.
Yeah, I believe that the proper way that you want to create change is by looking at the past, learning from the mistakes, understanding acutely so the failures, and then move forward with a new set of standards. Because if you try to so here's the problem. There also are some situations like Weinstein where I do believe that retroactively we can punish someone. I do believe that's a thing. But this is tough, man, because
what do you mean by retroactively punish someone? That's what I'm looking for.
Well, so there were things that he had done, and we were now punishing him for what he had done, or like Bill Cosby, for instance. Obviously,
right. I'm not talking about the individual retroactively punishing. I'm talking about the individual's, let's say, category, whatever you want to say, that you can't judge the weight because of, if you're looking at Amber Heard because she's a woman, you can't say, well, hey, because women have historically always been at the shit end of the stick when they're coming forward with abuse. In this case now, we're going to give Amber a better case.
Yeah. I see what
obviously, for retroactively for the individual, fair game. Fair fucking game. But I'm just saying, again, if it was a black person or something, for a long time they couldn't even be in the same room as white people. So hey, we're gonna give them a better punishment than the white person.
Yeah,
I just feel like that's a dangerous precedent to start sending.
Slippery slope.
Yeah. So at the end, what we should be achieving for, and what the Me Too movement is about, is being able to create an environment where people who are abused are comfortable coming forward. Right, that's what the Me Too movement is a fact.
As we understand,
that you have power because you were abused, whereas before you would have been squashed and people could cover up your shit, right? Because they're powerful.
From what I understand of the Me Too movement, it's just about giving power to people who were powerless, and us coming together and acknowledging that,
men and women.
Yeah,
and so for me, Johnny Depp, in some level, is a victim in all this. So to squash him, but to support what happened with Amber Heard, is at some level not supporting the Me Too movement in its core.
It definitely feels like there's something dangerous there.
Because somebody here,
assuming that they are both responsible.
Right. And again, I think your agreement with me on this too, I don't want either of them to be canceled. I just want
without
equal
knowing
punishment.
For sure.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's just an unfair way to approach the situation. Yeah. And you don't want that situation to happen. You want fairness all around.
I think that though this is a better conversation, even though it will kind of die down by the time that this will happen. But I think this is something that we should review when we have a female colleague with us, preferably someone that's female and in the industry.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to actually get, obviously, that perspective because, again, we are two men. You know,
I don't want this to be like a mansplaining situation.
And we're defending a man, you know, and so it does have bad optics to it, but it just struck me as the wrong way to when I saw Johnny Depp had to step down from, as far as I know, a project that he actually. Oh, I know with Pirates he probably really liked it.
Yeah.
I know he really has a lot of reverence and respect for what the character in Pirates has done for him. So I think he'd love to be able to revisit that character time and time again. I could be wrong.
Do you think that they'll eventually have him come back?
How many pirate movies are they going to do?
Enough to bring him back.
That's what I mean. Like, if they do 3 of them, maybe, and it'll be like this big deal because he'll be back. I have no idea really, because like at the end of the day, there is a lot of backlash on how Warner Brothers handled this. There's a lot of backlash on it. So does that backlash reach, the heads of Warner Brothers to where they put him back in the film? I don't know. I mean, they changed Sonic around and everyone was all pissed off about Sonic. So
yeah,
if anything's possible when the public get upset enough. I don't know.
Yeah, there's here's what it feels like sometimes. So we're gonna shift a little bit.
Yeah.
To talk about when it comes to making female versions of predominantly male movies, right? Like you have the Ghostbusters, you have Ocean's 8, and it's a female version of a movie. I always felt that when you do something like that, you're almost demeaning the potential for new stories in whatever that is. So as soon as you have to go, this is a female version of the male thing, it's like, well, the female is already a badass thing. Females have such potential that you don't need to make them the female version. It's just give them their own story. And their story, to me, could be as interesting and as exciting and as awesome as the male version. I don't think there needs to be a male or a female version.
So what I think is there's 2 trains of thoughts here, because the 2 examples you gave are actually kind of 2 different movies as far as I understand them. Now,
what do you mean?
I'll explain that in a second. Now, I haven't seen Ghostbusters.
I've seen Ghostbusters. I haven't seen Ocean's 8.
Perfect. Okay. As far as I know, is Ghostbusters... I know they had some cameos with the original cast, but is it at all tied at all to the original cast? Or is it completely new universe?
I believe it... Ooh, I've only watched it once.
That's
I didn't
what I mean.
Like it.
I want to say the outcry was that it wasn't. It had no connection to them, but I could be wrong. Again, I have not seen it.
Yeah.
But here's how I think you should tackle these things in general. And I think you should tackle them like Ocean's 8 had, so it's interesting they hadn't seen it. Ocean's 8, I think when you are rebooting anything, it should not be a straight-out reboot. It should be some level, a continuation of the story that's told. Cobra Kai on Netflix, probably one of the best examples of that. Cobra Kai was one of my favorite watches recently, and it takes the same characters from the Karate Kid stuff, brings them forward in time to present day, 30 years later. You have the old characters, and you have the new characters, and they have the new, younger characters kind of will go through similar arcs. Some of them will reverse, which is always fun to see. It's great.
Yeah.
So it's a great continuation while being a reboot, right? I think that's what you have to do. You can't. Is
that what Ocean's 8 did?
And that's what Ocean's 8 did. Sandra Bullock's character is actually the sister of one of the main Ocean's characters, Danny Ocean, I think it is. So she's still an Ocean herself. And so she, being raised in that environment, forms her own team because she's connected to them. And most likely, if they do another one, they'll probably bring in other members if they can get them from the Ocean. So in some level, even though it was a reboot, it is still a continuation on some level, maybe like a branching off of the original story that we like.
See that? So I will say that doesn't bother you as much. Like the news that, I believe it's official news, that Suri will be the new Black Panther, totally behind it.
Right.
Because it's not a male version of Black Panther. Black Panther is this title, and a woman can be just as badass of the Black Panther as a male can be.
Right.
And so for me...
And I think that's kind of what they're doing with they call her Lady Thor, but she's going to have a different title. She's going to be her own thing, with the Thor Love and Thunder. Natalie Portman's character is going to be embracing the power of Thor. It's similar to, if people don't realize, the power of Thor is not necessarily something that's stuck to Thor. A lot of people have been Thor in the comics. And so it's another thing where if they wanted to go a different way with it, and Chris Hemsworth wants to finally step away from the character after a while, I don't think he is, but if he wanted to, they have an avenue now to keep a Thor-like character there. But it's all connected.
Yeah, as long as you're not, like... Do you understand where I'm kind of heading in the way that when you make... So if it's not connected to the universe and it's just, let's do the same story, but I want them to be
women. Yeah.
Either women or whatever kind of transference of, like, women are badass in and of themselves. Yeah. You don't need to like show them being like, look at, like, let's compare the two. Instead, just give them their own separate... I love
it diminishes women. It diminishes them to always having to be on some level, which historically on some level they've always had to be, which should frustrate women, compared to men. In some way, if you are doing a straight reboot, and then you are just gender swapping it to where they're now women, what's the first thing people are going to do? Compare it to the men who played the role. And historically speaking, that should upset women because they've always been on some level compared to men. Be badass in their own right, with their own characters, make them fully fleshed out human beings, not just archetypes of a badass woman that's similar to the one in the original film, which is another issue with how people write women these days. They're not actually fucking human beings. They're just archetypes.
Oh, yeah.
All of that shit is one of the main reasons with some of these reboots that we're seeing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So I hope that... Are we mansplaining?
Well, since we're talking to each other about it, we're just mansplaining to each other.
That's okay.
Yeah, right? I think
it's just our opinions.
Let me mansplain about what mansplaining is, which is when you explain something to a woman in a derogatory or demeaning tone that, like, you're not going to get this, but because I'm a guy... we work with tools and cars and all this cool shit. Let me tell you how it is. I think that's my understanding of mansplaining. If someone feels differently, I would actually love to hear. I'd be very interested in having a conversation.
Yeah, I hope they're seeing the message behind it. It is in support of how incredible we think. Like in this particular situation, it's in support of how incredible women are. Like I remember when I watched the Wonder Woman, there was a huge. It said that women loved the scene where she was on the battlefield, and it was such a riveting scene. And women, I was watching it with my roommate, and she was in tears and whatnot. And a lot of women had this idea that, like, we finally get to see a woman on the screen be badass, and I totally understand that sentiment. But part of me was like, if you're a fan of comics, as I am, in the way that, like, you thought Wonder Woman's been badass for years. Sure,
but I
get what they're going for.
I can definitely see
they're
on
not
a big,
in that fandom,
on a big
so I get
movie.
that. But part of me is like, they have not gotten their proper representation.
Yeah.
But when I look at when I'm looking at watching the different animated series and watching, I'm like Wonder Woman, for instance, it's like I didn't need her to get her own movie for me to know that she was badass, And so it's interesting to look how people respond to certain things.
One of my least favorite things about some of the quote unquote badass women characters that we've seen is the almost on the nose, almost borderline tongue-in-cheekness of look how badass I am. Instead of just having the character be badass in her own way with her own issues, her own shortcomings, her own... It's almost like when they make badass female characters nowadays, they're scared to put any weaknesses in some of them. But those are what make you the strong. Those are overcoming losses and weaknesses are what make you a badass. It's not just being able to be good at everything, right? Yeah. And so one of my favorite action movies of the year was back then was Alita Battle Angel, because
I love it.
Because she was kind, she was sensitive, she was empathetic, but she was also a badass without it having to feel like, well, look how badass I am. She just was.
Well, what's more important is it wasn't look how badass a woman can be.
Right.
It was just look how badass this person is.
Exactly.
Oh, this is a woman. Like
Right.
you didn't have to like go forward with like, oh, but she didn't realize that a woman can be badass. It just accepted the fact that women can be a badass, so they didn't have to put it.
It goes
kind of
back.
in your face.
It goes back to the archetype things. And when I say that she was kind, she was empathetic, she was all these things, I'm not saying that that's what a woman should be, but it was that she was a fleshed out character. She had layers to her. She had moments where she was just so kind that she wouldn't hurt somebody in that moment. She had her morals. She had all these things that she was a fleshed out character. She wasn't just the archetype of the badass women, which is what you will see when they have no weaknesses. When they just, any challenge, it will be overcome in that same scene.
Oh, yeah.
They will never have a loss because it's almost like people are scared that if they do that, they're in some cultures, like in some circles, hating on a girl or like, watch, you made her weak. No, overcoming weakness is strength. And so what we're looking at here is, I have no issue with the things of Wonder Woman. I have no issue of what's been going on with it. I didn't like Wonder Woman for its third act. I think the first two acts are great. I didn't like the villain battle. That's my issue with it.
It was pretty weird.
It was
kind
weird.
of strange.
Not that, I don't have an issue at all with her portrayal of the character or what's going on. I just didn't like how the movie was made on some of it. But again, we might be mansplaining. I think that you and I both come from a place like, I know I wouldn't be half the man that I am today without, I'd be 10 times more of an asshole without the women in my life. There have been women who have taught me so fucking much about being a fucking human being.
Well, if you can't see the value in if you can't see the value in women, if somehow you think less of them because they're a woman, it's intellectually dishonest.
Yeah.
It's just so invalid. And I agree.
So, and using that word invalid to wrap this up, I don't want us to invalidate women victims. I don't want us to act like we're saying like that they shouldn't come forward. And like the Amber Heard, if she is the victim that she says she is, she should be heard. I know some people are worried that like
she is heard.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
She's Amber Heard.
Get the hell out of here. That was a good one though. But like I feel like people are nervous that because we're giving so much quote unquote power to victims that then the public will react really without ever seeing the other side of it, and then obviously it snowballs into cancel culture and stuff like that. I'm worried that some people think that means that now we should just stop allowing people to come forward. Like, no. Yeah. People should be able to feel comfortable coming forward. People should feel comfortable being able to not feel like they're going to get squashed for coming forward. But I want to urge people to not quickly, just because someone comes forward, you can empathize with them, you can hear them, you can let them know that they are being seen, but you don't have to rush to judgment on the person that they are now accusing. You don't have to be quick to judgment on them because you still got to hear their side to it too.
Well, and I think it boils down to pretty simply, all victims need to be heard, regardless of their sex. All victims need to be heard. Yep. And once they are heard, we have to take the case seriously, and we have to act in the way that is closest to fair that we can get to. And to do that, we have to be diligent in both listening to the victim and then checking out the stories. There needs to be fair due process. Mm-hmm. And that goes for any victim, regardless of sex, regardless of skin color, regardless of anything. Every victim should be heard, listened to, and due process takes its course.
I know I get this sometimes with this with domestic abuse and certain areas of abuse in general, that be in the workplace, personal life, what have you. It is hard to get evidence because you're just such in shock of what's going on around you that the first thing you don't think of is, let me go document that. Let me go write that down right now. Yeah. Sometimes you have the presence of mind to do it. Most of the time, if it's new and happening to you, you don't, and sometimes those first interactions are the worst ones. sometimes, and you didn't document it. And then people are like, well, why didn't you come forward earlier? Well, I didn't have evidence then, but I had to wait a year. I had to wait 2 years for it to happen again. So like, it's tough. And it's tough to have evidence and due process for these things. So let that be the actual job of the courts to work through and figure out. And I urge companies to not be so quick to rush to, I can't remember the word that you used, but I really liked it, but virtue signaling. To virtue signal that, look, we're a great company. Look, we're so good that we're going to stop this guy from working and come support us. Because at the end of the day, that's all businesses give a shit about. Yeah. That is all they give a shit about, is what's going to be best for the money in our pockets. They're not doing it because they love they really respect a lot of the people that they're trying to help. Like, maybe they do, but at the end of the day, if that wasn't good money for them, they wouldn't do the practice. Yeah. So I just don't think that businesses should be quick to virtue signal before we actually get a fucking, I don't know, the due process, like you were saying.
Yeah, victims should be heard. We need to have fairness, and women are badass.
That's what we're on. Women are badass.
That's what
to quote the boys, girls get shit done. Have you seen The Boys season 2? It's great.
I've seen like 5 episodes, 4 episodes, 4 to 5, 3 to 5 episodes.
They spoof the speaking of virtual signaling, they spoof the.
Oh wait, I saw the interview with the 2 girls where she asked her, like, do you think that you're compared her to male superheroes or something like that?
There's a couple of those, I think. I don't remember if that's the one I'm thinking of, but they spoofed the moment in Endgame when all the women get on screen.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're shooting the movie for VOT and for their VOT films, and there's all 3 of the women, and the camera cuts, and they like all again. She's like, she's not alone, and she's like, and they're like, girls, get it done, and it's like really cheesy and shit, right? And they're like hating these rewrites and stuff like that. And what's funny about it is if you follow the stuff with the Snyder cut, with Homelander literally goes, I don't know, man, this Josh Whedon script really sings. This Josh Whedon rewrite really sings. And it's like, oh God, they did that.
Oh man.
And then they go back to it, not to spoil anything, but there is actually a badass scene with the women. And like it goes back and like the camera cuts over to Frenchie, and these women are just kicking this other person's ass, right? And Frenchie just goes, oh, girls really do get it done. Like, they spoof their own shit, and it's great, Lord. And it works so well. So, long story short, girls get it done.
Girls get it done. Women get it done.
Let's go get some tacos.
Let's get tacos, man. Thank you guys for listening.
Seriously.
Please like and subscribe. If you do have some interesting thoughts about what we've discussed, or you think that we were wrong in some place, so we always want to hear the feedback. We always want to hear the criticism. We want to have some thoughts, and next time we have a podcast, we can expand on that and talk about it.
Pretty sure, if not, this is going to get cut. We're pretty sure this is going to go up on YouTube. So leave a comment on YouTube. Leave a comment if you're catching this on any other platform that can allow comment.
Let us know what you think, or if we missed something.
I mean, we could probably even link an email address that we'll set up for this podcast that people can then write in if you just feel comfortable writing in, and maybe we'll try to talk about what we saw going in. So if you feel like there's something that you just want to write about and like have us discuss or look over, or perspective that we're not seeing, let us know.
We would love to hear from you. All right, you guys have a good night.
Yeah, you guys take it easy, all right?
Bye.